my organization, we've got customers from all industries, all sizes, and they're always looking for what is happening in the industry, what other examples can we get. Specifically, I liked how everybody says, yes, technology is an enabler. It's important, we need to try it, but let's first understand what's the problem you're trying to solve and then bring technology to help solve that.
Season 11 of CX in the Wild is live from across the world. From the buzzing streets of Tokyo to the creative pulse of Sao Paulo, we are on the ground, uncovering CX in its rawest form. This season, we're venturing into uncharted territory, exploring the edges of what's possible. So, let's begin.
All right, welcome back to CX in the Wild. We're here in Lisbon with Manuela, and we are going to be talking about Lisbon, what's keeping her busy. But before I get in too far into it, Manuela, why don't you tell us who you are and what's keeping you busy these days?
Okay, so my name is Manuela Doutel Haghighi. The Doutel comes from my mom, who's Portuguese. The Haghighi comes from my dad, who's Iranian. I was born in France, so I'm officially confused. I've lived in 7 different countries, 3 continents, and I left Portugal when I was 18. Went around the world, lived and worked in many different countries and companies. And between Brexit and 40s, I said, you know what? Actually, Portugal is a really cool country. So I'd love to work in Portugal, but have an international job and an international salary. And cutting a long story short, with COVID in the middle, I ended up with Microsoft right now. I'm a director in global customer experience and success. And when I joined, what keeps me busy right now, we're in our new fiscal year. We just started now, and I work in a team of about 400 people. So I'm part of the leadership team, and our role is for the top strategic accounts that we have. And right now, they've gone from 200 to 600. We ensure that customers that get our technology are making the most of our technology. And of course, I've got the spin of customer experience and making sure that they are experiencing the best of the technology from whatever we've sold them and whatever expectations and perceptions they had, all the way to making sure it's actually working for them and they're getting a good return on investment.
Wow, that's quite a lot.
I know.
That was like,
and I talk a lot. I'm Portuguese after all.
That was more, I think, than I've heard anyone say in quite a while. That's a long list of things. Yeah. Let's talk about well, we're here at the CX Leader Summit today. What was your key takeaway from today?
The cases. I was saying I like the summit, not just today, but the one we had a couple of weeks ago, compared to like technology summits, AI summits, leadership summits that we go to, where people talk in very broad, generic terms, and they always put the best side of themselves and their organizations. So I'm getting a bit bored about that. What I liked about the CX Summit is real cases. And today, for example, all the examples that we got and from India and other companies as well was, gosh, I hadn't thought about this. So for me, I come with ideas of really I can see organizations that are really putting the customer at the center of everything they do, and then how they apply technology to it. So examples from healthcare, people not being able to go to the hospital, but having the support through the technology to understand what they have and where they can go next. The insurance companies, one of my favorite stories was, if I think about my mom, she's 86. She's got a car that maybe she uses now maybe once a year, and yet she's paying insurance the whole year when she's actually not using the car. And the fact that you now can only pay insurance with a device in your car when you use the car. These type of examples, for me, is really putting people at the center. And I come here for inspiration, because in my organization, we've got customers from all industries, all sizes, and they're always looking for what is happening in the industry, what other examples can we get. And specifically, I liked how everybody says, yes, technology is an enabler. It's important. We need to try it, but let's first understand what's the problem you're trying to solve, and then bring technology to help solve that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there is a real shift, I think, from ownership to utility when it comes to pricing and the experiences that we want. Yeah. And you're doing a lot. You've seen a lot across a lot of different borders, and now you're You're working on Microsoft here. What do you think is on the horizon for customer experience in up until the end of the year? Somebody made the joke about not predicting too far in the future now because of COVID, and I think that's true. But if you would have told me how much would change with Claude and OpenAI and ChatGPT, I wouldn't have imagined we could do 2 years ago what we can do now. So there's a lot of changing, but what do you think's changing? Because you're at sort of one of the bigger icebergs in the water.
We are. So on one hand, you've got the pressure of a very competitive market. And so it's how do you stay ahead of the competition? In precisely as you said, this new pricing model, which is you pay what you use for. So in a way, it's quite easy to switch, from one provider to the next. So that's one pressure that you have. I am convinced, and this is my personal opinion more than anything else, that what will make the difference is the customer experience. Because if you take large-scale digital transformations, because ultimately that's what it is, and again, the solutions that you have, whether it's cloud or AI or data or security, it's solutions, but it's still a digital transformation of organizations. I think what will make the difference is customer experience. It's not the cheapest. This price war comes to a point that it's not sustainable anymore because you still need to invest in the present, in the future, in new technologies, in people. So I am convinced that customer experience is going to be the differentiator. Now, traditionally, and we're no different, people thought about customer experience post-sales. And they don't realize that actually the customer experience comes from your brand, if you have one, if you're known or not. And the idea is that marketing, communications, and then sales people actually put in your head. They paint a picture, and then delivery has to go and make sure that whatever dream they've sold makes it happen. I think these organizations are starting to realize, and I can speak from my own. If I look at our area, customer experience was set up 2 years ago. And we have a strategy. It was a team that was appointed and sponsored by the CEO. That's super important. I see a lot of people talking about customer experience, but it's nice to have in a marketing department or some other department. It's not core part of the strategy of the culture. And I think we talk a lot about listening to customers, but we have what we call the 4 voices strategy, where we listen to our customers. And we're starting to listen to them from the sales cycle all the way to the delivery implementation cycle. Conversations, not just customer sat surveys. Again, that's very contact center type of approach, but actually in every interaction, in the services, in the talks, in the meetings, measure all of that. But also our partners. We're a company that half of our revenue comes from partners. So are we actually listening to our partners? I was just having a conversation outside, and how partners, which are often the people who implement our technology, what's their experience with us? How are we treating them? A lot of them are SMEs. How we listen to our employees. So that's one of the things that is the future, is listen to the employees. Often the employees know what the problems are because they're the ones facing the customer. I love the Deepu's example about saying the person at the contact center is the customer rep, and they rate the other departments that support them. I thought that was a brilliant idea. I'm definitely going to take this back home. And so employee experience is super important because these are the people who actually face the customers day in, day out. And then last but not least, the market experience, i.e. what's the competition doing, what's intelligence out there, learning from all of that. So for me, the future of customer experience is these 4 voices, and not just focus on one aspect, but all of them, and then personalize it as much as possible. What do you think?
I think that was a lot. I normally am a good listener, but it's hard because you say so many things. Like, to one question you have like 70 answers. I'm trying to just keep up with so this is outstanding. I love it because I am struggling to. So I asked you what the future of customer experience looks like for the short term, and you said you had an observation about top-down leadership.
Yeah.
You had observation about interdepartmental coherence and not analysis, but like recognition, but also just the beginnings of the conversation of interdepartmental calibration. I think so. You talked about management and vision and organization, and then you talked about calibration. But then you did circle back around twice about CX life cycle, but you talked specifically about the front end of brand and marketing and sales. But there is also, of course, all the way down to supply chain finance, commodities. So you talked about the broad spectrum, and which of that, what do you think, like if you could have
narrow down?
Yeah, like what do you think, like you personally, not like what you see for the industry, or like is
Sales.
there one thing you're...
Sales. I think the future of CX is looking at how we sell. If you set the right expectations, then it'll be a lot easier to meet the expectations of the customers and give a good customer experience.
Let me jump in. Let me jump in there. So you said the future of customer experience is sales. And it's great. I love that as a kickoff. And part of that is like, then also the future of customer experience is how people buy.
Yeah.
So, and I think our earlier discussion was a little bit around this new buying behavior of fragmentation or fractional purchases or utility. And I think we both agreed we see that coming. So if that's the case, we have a change in the buyer.
Yeah.
And is that, do you think it's mostly business to consumer or business to business or both? Because you pointed out some options where there might be both. And so when you come back to CX and sales, because I would agree with you that there's a lot of opportunity there. What do you see as what are you going to do to change the global dynamic?
Yeah. So my experience is B2B. That's why I talk about sales, because that's where my whole life experience and professional experience is B2B. That's the most difficult. How do you measure customer experience in the B2B world? When you're talking about complex transactions, complex digital transformations, long term. So there is an element of short-termism, which is contact center, because that always exists also for the B2B. And how the buyers, who are the buyers? So we talk often in the different rooms of the house. A buyer in the B2B world, it's the C-level, but it's not just the C-level, it's also the developer. So in the C-level, you have the CEO, yes, but you also have the chief financial officer, the COO, the chief marketing officer, all these people. All these people want to buy things in a different way and often conflicting with each other. And then you have security and legal. But for example, one of the things I see, especially in the corporate world, people tended to focus very much at the C-level. But actually the people who make or break a digital transformation are in the middle management and the people at the bottom. I'm a big fan of bottoms up. This is my personal philosophy, bottoms up as opposed to top down. And I always made sure that I stayed in touch with what's going on the ground. So when we're talking about customer experience, are we talking not just with developers, but the IT department, the people who actually use our technology, but also the middle management. Because very often when things go wrong, and my specialty is things going wrong and trouble contracts and upset customers and whatnot, it's the middle management that we've ignored, and by the time it goes to the C-level, it's already a crisis. It should have never got to the C-level. And two aspects about this, and again, based on my experience in the B2B world. By the time it gets to the C-level, they only hear about the things that have gone wrong. We often do, in the delivery world, in the implementation world, a very poor job at selling what we're doing well. You know, how things are going well. The fact that you don't hear noise, it's actually good news. Yeah. So I would say that's why, for me, it's different types of buyers. It's very different from B2C, because the B2C is an individual. So it's a lot easier to tailor, the sell to that individual with technology. In the B2B world, it's still human interactions, and it's different levels of an organization. So technology can help, but you still need that human interaction.
Yeah. If we're being totally honest, customer service or customer experience as a business it's all hype, and it's all it's all a hallucination unless you can make a sale, unless it converts, unless you have enough experiences that create value enough that someone will buy it. So many times we find ourselves solving customer experience problems for people who have already purchased, and that's really not where the emphasis should be. And I think you're right that it will go closer to sales. Do you think bigger companies like yours have an equal opportunity to do that compared to smaller, like more nimble companies?
We are going through a big reorganization, so people can just go online and read a lot about the reorganizations precisely to get closer to customers. And it's been very interesting to see this, because when you become very big, again, the middle piece grows, arms and legs, and there's a tendency for large organizations to be inward looking because they're that big. And I think we've realized that. It's like, no, we need to go back and get closer. And so we need more people on the field, more people closer to customers. So yes, I find that smaller companies, SMEs, medium companies, etc., because they have less number of customers, they're a lot more personalized and dedicated. If you want to scale, and then it's a lot more difficult as a small organization, because even with technology, you just need more people, and you need to deploy more easily people, and you don't necessarily have various industries. You have usually one industry you can focus on. So I think we are. And it's not just organization, getting closer to the field, closer to our customers, and bringing the experience of a lot more customers. And we're using technology for that. One of the things I've seen in our customer experience area is we are doing measurements in general, and then insights. And the insights are now so advanced that you can go to an area as big as the Americas and say to the President of the Americas, right, here's your pipeline in the health sector in this territory. However, here's the issues we're having, with the customers in that territory. Unless you fix that, forget about selling anything to them. Now, thanks to technology and the scale and the investment that's put in that, you can say that. I don't know if small and medium companies, that's what I'm saying, as a niche and dedicated service, that would be great. But if you want to scale and do this for bigger industries, then that's going to be a lot more difficult. And that's like companies like ours can actually do that.
Yeah. It's kind of funny to hear you tell the story about your reorg, because I heard you in the conference earlier today saying you were IBM, but this sounds just like the IBM playbook. Pulling it all back, getting back into the customers, like creating a better experience. That worked. It works. Strange, Starbucks did that same thing. Let's focus on our customers, but it does work.
But what it is, it's also, I love history in general and root cause. That's the two things. I always go to the root cause, and I said this a few times today, which is Microsoft is a company that has amazing products. That's why nobody I know has ever called a help desk because either PowerPoint, Word, or Excel was not working. It just works. And it's funny, I hear a lot of people saying that actually the technology is amazing. The products that they do are amazing. Lots and lots of investment in engineering. But for a long time, it was a company that was very much a monopoly. There was nothing else out there. The moment you get into the cloud business, cloud and AI, and suddenly you get into a competitive market, you have to start changing and becoming a lot more focused on what the customers want and need and listening to them, and not just say, our products are great, so of course everybody's going to buy this. And I think that's the mind shift. And I see this also with our CEO. I mean, he came with a very different cultural approach of being closer to customers, and I'll tell you, and also how people, you talked earlier on about how people work more closely together. It was very fragmented and separated. I talk about our bonus system and people don't believe me when I say this. I'm like, look, half or a quarter of our bonuses, depending on the roles, depend on customer sat. So that's measured, we receive money for that. But also how we help others and how others help us. I've never seen this in my life, ever. And I was like, so you paying me for working better with my colleagues, asking for help and then me helping them. Yeah. That changes the culture. Going back to what Dibu was saying earlier on, is when you start really looking at the individuals, the employee experience, and making them focused, then that changes the culture.
Yeah. I always say teamwork is the most important part of customer experience. Well, it sounds like you used to have some exciting times ahead. I wish you luck. Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we wrap up this quick little podcast from the CX Summit in Lisbon?
I'd love to see more CX summits. I'd like to see, in Portugal this is growing, so I'd like Europe. I traditionally have seen, especially the Americas and also Asian countries, very much focused on customer experience. I'd love to see Europeans, so starting with Portugal and other countries, invest more in these type of summits, in sharing experiences, in learning from each other, because it's such an amazing world, and then learning from other continents, seeing what other places, other countries are doing. So let's continue having these podcasts and these summits and learning from each other, because ultimately without customers, we don't have businesses, so it only makes sense.
All right, well, and thank you for fitting me in, because we have to run off to this next thing.
Okay, thank you.
CX is shaped where people live, work, and connect. Thank you for being a part of this journey. There's more to discover, more to challenge, and more to create. So stay curious, and we'll see you out there.